if we don't get good sleep, our bodies aren't repairing the damage we do to ourselves on a daily basis. And, that was my situation too. My sleep was garbage for a couple of years. And, so the body just wasn't able to repair all the damage I was doing to it. And arteries get clogged, and then you get cardiologists that skip bedside manner class making comments about me being dead.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Michael Levitt. Michael is the founder and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, a media firm dedicated to addressing burnout and improving workplace culture. Michael's expertise stems from his background in HR leadership and executive coaching, which now informs the impactful media content produced by his company. Michael enables thriving workplaces. He is a burnout survivor, AI solutions consultant, global thought leader on HR and wellness, therapist, keynote speaker, author, executive coach, and host of the Breakfast Leadership Show podcast. Michael has authored books on burnout prevention, and his latest is The Burnout Proof: How to Establish Boundaries to Avoid the Negativity of Stress. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Michael. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Well, I really appreciate this opportunity, Dwight. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, I'm excited. Um, Listeners, in our prior conversation prior to hitting record, um, Michael was telling me how this started out as a podcast where it wasn't going to be daily, and it's pretty much got to daily. Man, that is incredible, Michael. I'll tell you, some people aren't tenacious enough or have that kind of energy to do a podcast where you're, posting almost daily and interviewing all those people. I'm going to ask you a question before we get into your origin story, which I normally start out with, that somebody asked me the other day. Can you remember some of your first guests in detail? Or as you go through that many, do they start getting to be a blur somewhat?
I'll be completely honest. Some of them definitely can be a blur where I'll, look at, past episodes and I'll look at a name and it's as if somebody hit me with the Men in Black pen. And I'm like, who? And it's like I would listen to it, then I'll remember the conversation. But yeah, when you get to the point where you start interviewing a lot of people, it's just like meeting people in life. There's going to be some that are going to stand out a little bit more than others. And that's just because something they said or a conversation you had with that individual sticks with you. Like I think of an interview that I had, oh my goodness, almost 7 years ago with Roger Nierenberg, former conductor. He's a leadership consultant now, and I love the work that he does. He brings a small orchestra with him into teams and does demonstrations about leadership and orchestras and all that kind of stuff. And his method is really unique. And I had, great conversation with him. It's like, never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be chatting with a conductor of, an orchestra. And so those stick out. And then, I had a conversation the other day with somebody. Their father was an assassin. So it's like, okay, that's unique. Let's have that conversation. And that conversation took a different turn than I thought it would. But it, of course, that one's fresh because it just recently happened. But my hunch is I'm not going to forget that one. So yeah, when you have conversations, just like in life, there's going to be people you meet that you'll forget, and there are going to be people that you never will.
Yeah, and it all ties back to because I was reading yesterday too, and you're like me. you really like somebody that's great at telling a story. And from reading about you, obviously you educate and teach on that as well, and are a great storyteller. And when I think back on, obviously, I only do once a week for the last 4.5 years, so I'm 200 and you're my 245th, I'm pretty sure, episode. I think the ones that stand out the most are the ones that are good storytellers. And it's not just about people that are listening. Storytelling isn't just about reading something or just being monotone. It's about how you inflect your vocals. It's about everything. Even if you're on a phone talking with somebody, you have body language which affects your story and
Mm,
resonates with emotions. And I think some of the most profound ones for me have been the same thing. It's great stories, touching stories, ones that hit me in the feels, right? And it doesn't have to necessarily be a personal. It can be a business relationship story. It can be anything. It's just how it's delivered. So we're both on the same page. That's exactly what I told the person, right? Like, they asked me, and I said, well, interviewing Robin Williams, chef was amazing, where he told me about how I just about burned down Robin Williams' kitchen, or interviewing the lady that helped her family run a kinder transport train that helped Jews escape Germany in the underground, and just stuff like that. And I'm not
mm,
discounting the other guests. They were great, but some of them just there's no way that it's leaving my forefront of my thoughts, right? Because it's just
yeah,
it was so emotionally tied. So you would agree then the more emotionally tied it is, the more it's easier to remember. But I can
absolutely.
imagine 900 episodes. Wow. I look forward to getting to that someday, but I don't think I'll do it daily. So I've got a few years to go yet. But I think I'll remember ours though, because it was quite amazing to read through your story and
Hmm.
find out the information about you. And I think our listeners and viewers are going to enjoy it as well. So one of the things I started off with, I mentioned to you, is the origin story, because I
Hmm.
find those that are new to the show, watching or listening, I consider the origin story the de facto standard of getting to know anybody, even if I meet them face to face. In general conversation, most people will say, "Well, tell me something about yourself. Tell me about your life." At least if you're a great conversationalist, not like, "How's your day?" Most
Mm,
people, even if they're having a crappy day, aren't going to tell you the truth anyway.
right.
Right? They're not going to be genuine and straightforward. So the art of conversation and good storytelling is something I think everybody needs to practice.
Mm.
And I do all the time. So I look forward to hearing about your origin stories and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
Yeah, my childhood is amazing. And, I've gone through therapy and I always recommend people, everyone should have a therapist in their life. It doesn't mean you have a trauma that you need to work through, but there might be something that's kind of holding you back a little bit. So that's just a side note. Get a therapist and you work through some of those things. It'll make a huge difference in your life. But my childhood was amazing. And again, working through, a therapist, I look back, I'm like, okay, is there anything that I'm suppressing? Is there anything that I'm like blocking? Because I know many kids, unfortunately, did not have the greatest childhoods, and I have no complaints, none. I think long and hard. Okay, what can I complain about? And nothing comes to mind. So very thankful that my parents did everything that they did with the circumstances that they faced from an economic standpoint, having parents that grew up in the Great Depression, you name it. So, the odds were stacked against us being able to live the life that we did, but we did, and thankful for that. Adulthood, it was good early on, and then it started to take a little bit of a twist and turn. Worked in a variety of different industries. Originally was in accounting. Worked as an accountant in a CPA firm for almost 8 years. So at the time of this recording, it's still tax season. Got a few more weeks to go. So my former fellow accountants, you almost got this. It's almost there. Don't worry, because those are some long hours. And growing up in Detroit, it's a surefire way to have winter go by really quick because you're always inside in the office working because the hours were just nuts. So I, always, even though I've been out of that field for decades, April 16th, I still feel this lightness in my shoulders. I feel better. It's like, why am I feeling so relaxed? I'm like, oh yeah, end of tax season. That's in muscle memory now. But from there, I did a lot of different things. I went into IT. rode the IT.com wave. That was absolutely zany, being a part of that. And then, of course, it crashed. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I better go back to counting beans or doing something else. And found some roles that were kind of a hybrid of it. And then back in 2007, stumbled on an opportunity to lead a startup healthcare organization. And which was really interesting for me because I didn't have any healthcare experience. I used the healthcare system from time to time, but I never ran a healthcare organization, never recruited physicians or hired nurses or handled, medical equipment ordering or any of that kind of stuff before. But I was thrown in there, and ironically, I was with the organization a year before they told me why they hired me. It's because that's not a question we usually ask. When you get a job offer, do you usually ask them, "Hey, why are you hiring me?" No, we're like, "Where do I sign?" I'm not. Why? Because you don't want to introduce any buyer's remorse, at least right there. They might have it later, but yeah, I didn't ask that question. So we were at a year celebration type of thing, and they told me the reason they hired me was because of my startup experience and business experience, and they knew that I would pick up and I would learn everything I need to do, and I did. But it was a lot of work and a lot of hours, which was something that I should have been a little bit more aware of, but I wasn't because even though I was an employee and this was a startup, I took it upon myself to make this organization mine as if it was my business. So, as entrepreneurs, we all know we put in a lot of hours in our businesses, and I did that for this company, even though I was an employee and not the owner. And I was pretty much working 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week for 2 solid years, and burned out like you would not believe. You check all the boxes of all the signs of burnout. I hit them all. And I didn't realize I was burned out. Everyone around me knew I was, but I didn't know. And then it all came to what I could call a crashing halt in May of 2009, where I had what I refer to as my year of worst case scenarios. So May 2009, I worked that day. I got home and it was springtime, so it was time to mow the lawn. The lawn was getting a little furry, so we had a small front lawn, and our backyard was more of a old swimming pool, but then we had a playhouse for our kids and a swing set and all that kind of stuff. So the lawn, there wasn't a lot of lawn, and gas prices were expensive back then. So we picked up an electric lawnmower, and the thing was bulky and heavy and just was hard to turn and all of that. So I'm mowing the front lawn, and I mow the first row, and then I go to turn, and I feel this sharp pain in the center of my chest, and it hurt. I mean, literally, it was my knees buckled. It was that much pain, and I'm like, "Ow!" And I, attributed it to that piece of garbage lawnmower, and I couldn't finish mowing the lawn, so I was able to get the lawnmower in the backyard. Went inside, took some pain medication, and the pain eased up and went away, and then went to sleep. And then next morning, went to work. Everything was fine, but I noticed that pain that I had, kind of was a stabbing pain, would come up anytime that I lifted anything heavy with my right arm. Now, I'm typically left-handed, so I tend to use my left hand more than my right. But so I don't tend to use my right hand to lift things a lot. But occasionally, with the way that my office was set up, my bag was always on my right, so I'd always pick it up. So it would happen, and didn't think much of it. And I figured, okay, I pulled the muscle. Well, I'll just take some pain medication if it gets too problematic, and we'll just keep an eye on it, and no big deal. So fast forward to Thursday night, my wife and I go out to dinner, and this was right around our wedding anniversary, and we went to a place, a local restaurant, and they had an all-you-can-eat special, and I was willing to take them up on that offer. And I crushed it. I ate so much fried, what, everything and everything, and washed it down with a few adult beverages. Life was good. So eat, go home, go to bed. About 10:30, I wake up with that pain that I had from Monday night, but it was at least 10 times worse, if not more. And it was just like literally this pressure crushing my chest. And I'm like, ow. And I pretty much thought, okay, this is gas buildup from all the garbage that I ate earlier. So I went into the bathroom and, I took some Tums and was able to go back to sleep. Wake up Friday morning. That pain that I'd have occasionally when I lifted anything up would would was just permanently there. It was always there. It was a dull pain, but it was there. So I get into work. I'm there about 45 minutes, and then reminder, I work at a medical clinic. So I talked to the lead physician. I said, Tim, can you come in here for a minute? I got a question for you. And I explained what had happened. And he said, well, let's listen. It's probably nothing. He probably did pull something really bad. Let's listen. So he listens to my heart and he goes, it's probably nothing, but we've got the portable EKG equipment here. Why don't we run a test? So I'm like, all right, let's go back in the procedure room and we'll get you all hooked up and we'll run some tests just to make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary. So I go back there, I get undressed and all that kind of stuff. And then the doctor and a couple nurses and a couple of medical assistants are in there. And they're all cracking sexual harassment jokes because their boss has taken his clothes off at work. And, so they were just having a field day with it. I'm red as a tomato, not thinking anything of it. So they hook up the EKG equipment, they run the test, they look at the results, and they're like, all of a sudden the laughing stopped. And they looked and we haven't used this machine a lot, but those results look really strange. So we're gonna we're gonna disconnect everything and put new leads on and connect everything back up again and run the test. Well, they did that, and the results came back the same as the first one. So they sent it off to the hospital. A few minutes later, Dr. Gina, one of the cardiologists at the hospital there, called back and says, tell Michael to get his butt into the hospital right now and he cannot drive. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had a heart attack, probably a couple of them, a mild one on the Monday and a more severe one on that Thursday evening. I had blockages in my left anterior descending artery, which, if you're familiar with cardiology world, that artery has a nickname. It's called the Widowmaker because usually people that have blockages in that artery and have a heart attack, statistically speaking, they don't survive. It's March 2025. I'm still here. So one of the fortunate ones. So I was in the hospital for almost a week. The procedure, it was funny because of licensing for what cardiologists could do. Because what they did is I had two cardiologists actually operate on me. One the day before, I was on a Wednesday. Did the angiogram, and what that is where they go in and they take a peek around and see what's going on. And then Dr. Morrissey did the angioplasty, which was putting stents in the artery to open things up. So Dr. Morrissey comes in on Thursday to do that. So I'm in the prep room getting all ready to go, and he comes in. It's the first time I've ever met him. I've never talked to him before. He comes in, doesn't say hello. He's comes in, looks at the chart, and he looks at a couple things, and then he looks at me and he leans in, and he goes, you should be dead. And I looked at him and I said, I see you skipped bedside manner class in medical school. He laughed, I laughed, my then wife and my mom were on my right side. They start bawling. So here we are, we got a doctor and the patient cracking up, laughing, thinking life's great. They're crying like crazy because they got the news that, yeah, I should be dead, but I'm not. He said, okay, all right. So probably going to put in a couple stents. We'll get in there. We'll see what's going on. Literally, I mean, the procedure took like 5 minutes and did it and all that. I was sent home the next day. So I am fresh off of this. I was off of work for 17 weeks. So from going and working all those hours every day to nothing. And that was a real hard shift for me. And I think it's a hard shift for a lot of people that are always going and doing things and all that don't take any time off. When your body goes, you're taking time off and shuts you down, it's hard on you, both from a physical standpoint, but even a mental aspect, because what I found was, okay, this is a wake-up call, literally. What am I going to do with this? So for those 17 weeks, I didn't work. I just kind of relaxed. I took things very easy, read a lot of books. I'm so thankful for Thomas Nelson Publishing. Michael Hyatt was the CEO then, and they had a book club. So I was a book reviewer, so I was reading a ton of books, and which I used to love reading when I was younger, and then college and work, I stopped doing it, and then so I was reading a ton of books, which helped me kind of heal and get back to feeling better and all of that. And then after the 17 weeks, I got cleared to go back to work, and the company decided they wanted to go in a different direction, so they laid me off. Uh, Remind you, this was 2009. Anybody remember the Great Recession? I was in Windsor, Ontario, across the border from Detroit, Michigan. If you remember, the auto sector had to be bailed out by the government because I know General Motors and Chrysler both filed bankruptcy during the Great Recession, and did the same thing in Canada. So, uh, well, there was a Great Recession for a lot of places in that region. It was a depression. So there was no jobs to be found. So here I am, fresh off of a heart attack and now unemployed in an area where there's not going to be a lot of jobs. So it took several months for me to be able to find a new job. And I went on interviews, um, kind of felt like the Buffalo Bills because I came in second so many times for interviews. It was getting frustrating. And like I gotta land one, come on. But it was just, and I was going anywhere. I was looking in the U.S. I was looking in Canada because backstory. My first wife is Canadian, and I'd immigrated to Canada in 2004 and became a citizen in 2011, so I can vote and screw up two countries. We'll leave it at that. I won't tell people who I vote for or anything like that. But especially right now, it's
Especially,
yeah,
especially to a Canadian.
yeah, to a kid,
I am a
yeah, yeah,
Canadian.
yeah. Well, dude, I am like I said, I'm a dual citizen, and I'm like, can't we get along? I'm like, what? Come on, guys. This is hurting me because I and I'm not going to get into a right or wrong. I think it's all wrong. But that's another subject for another day. But so for me, and thankfully I had my cardiac event in Canada because I didn't have to file bankruptcy for that, like I would have had to in the U.S. for sure. But getting back to it, I finally found a role. Ended up requiring, excuse me, a relocation to Toronto, and so moved up. My family was still down in the Windsor area. I was renting a room until we found a place to rent, and then we were going to put our house up for sale down in Windsor, which was going to be a challenge to say the least because, well, recession,
Recession, yeah.
not a lot of things moving. The realtor's like, the house is perfect. I can sell it. It's move-in ready. So we made sure to take care of it. It was move-in ready. Whoever bought it didn't have to do a thing, unless they wanted to remodel or do something or change something out. But it was ready to go, and we had done repairs and had people help out, and because we knew we were selling it, so it's like, well, let's get everything tidied up and make it look really good because we wanted to make sure that that house was a blessing for the next person like it was for us. So we did that, and so I'm up in Toronto, and I was in my new role for a couple of weeks, and then my daughter, who was 10 at the time, called at 4:08 p.m. Was on Wednesday, and she's crying. I couldn't understand a thing she was saying. And finally, I got from her that the bank had come and repossessed our family vehicle. When you have a cardiac event and you lose your job and you have unemployment coming in, which doesn't cover very much, and you're on heart medication and you have no insurance coverage, and that medication costs you $1,000 a month out of pocket, you got to make some choices. You got to pay for food. You got to obviously feed your family, uh, gas for vehicles to get to and from, and all that good stuff, and the medications, of course. And we had worked with the banks and the creditors, and they were all extremely gracious as much as they could be. But if you remember, this is a recession. There's a lot of people doing that too. So the banks exercised their right, and they took the vehicle. And I don't blame them. I didn't make payments. I was going to start making payments, but ran out of time, and they took the vehicle, and I don't blame them. I didn't live up to the bargain. So no, throughout all the things that happened to me, the heart attack, the job loss, the car repossession, I never blamed anybody for it. Who was responsible for it? It was me. So I took ownership of it. And so thankfully we had another vehicle that was paid off, which I had up in Toronto. So we had become a one vehicle family. And then a few weeks later, I finally found a place to rent for the family, moved them up, unpacked everything, realized we forgot the bunk bed ladder for our kids' bed. So I was going back to Windsor the following weekend to close up some business accounts and stuff down there and visit with some friends. And then I was going to say I'll swing by the house because we were getting ready to list it the following week. And I'll grab the ladder and anything else that we may have forgotten when we were moving up. So I did all the visiting, closed the accounts and all that stuff. Go to the house, uh, go to the front door, open up the screen door, see the biggest padlock I've ever seen in my life. You cannot buy this padlock at Home Depot. They don't sell it there. There's a sticker on the door that says foreclosure. I don't know why we never received notices from the bank saying, hurry up, we're going to foreclose you. Last warning. We did get letters saying, please make a payment. And we had worked with them, like with the others, but again, there's a lot of people that are losing their houses, and they again exercise the right to take the house. So called home, called my spouse, said, "Yeah, about the bunk bed ladder, we're not going to get it," and explained what had happened. And then I called the realtor and said, "You might still be selling this house, but you're not going to be working with us. You're going to be working with the bank that just foreclosed it." And they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, but here's something I say to people, and it throws them off like no tomorrow. When I open up the screen door and I see the lock and I see the note, at that moment in time, and to this day, I have never felt the level of peace that I felt at that moment. It was such a serene moment because I realized that everything that I'd gone through was done. I was like, what else can they take from me? What else is there? I've lost everything that I was going to lose. I'm alive. I'm feeling better. I have a place to live. I have a job, food on the table, all that. And it was like, just, it was such a serene moment. I could hear the birds chirping. The neighborhood was really quiet at that time of day, which was weird. It was normally not that quiet. It was really serene. And I remember that moment, and I'm like, and I just, just kind of put my hand on the brick side of the house, and I said, may this house be a blessing to whoever gets it. And I closed the screen door and backed out and headed to Toronto. And that was kind of the infancy of the work that I do today because my burnout was catastrophic, obviously. It's the worst case scenarios. All the things you could, if we had a dog, we probably would have lost that too. But we didn't. So because it kind of sounds like a country song if you think about it. It's like lost my car, lost some health, lost some dog.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of has that vibe to it. So for me, it was a moment where, and I could have gone a couple different ways on this. I could have went, hey, I'm Superman. I survived all that. I'm still standing. I'm just going to continue going on the way I live because nothing's going to stop me. But I didn't think that. I'm like, okay, no, this was very important for me to learn this. What can I do from it? Well, first, like let's get me back to who I can be, the best version of me. Let's scale things back. And I always tell people that are burning out or burned out, you don't have to reinvent your life in most cases. I chose to. I went, I'm throwing this out. No, I got to go about this completely different and worked through it and, dug back going, okay, why was it so important for me to work all those hours? What was I trying to prove? Why did I want to be a pillar in the community? What was I trying to accomplish? What was the motivators on all that? Ego was a big component of it, of course. I wanted to be viewed as this great person and did all these great things. It's like, and there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but for me, I did it to my own detriment. And having gone through all that, I'm like, all right, let's rebuild, let's start again, and become a better version for myself and got off a lot of the heart medications and I'm a lot better, lost a lot of weight. I feel a lot better. I went back into healthcare. My parents wanted to have me committed. They're like, "Are you nuts? It's like that industry nearly killed you." And I'm like, "I'm going to go about it and do it better." And I did. And I went back and I was in that field for almost 8 years afterwards and did really, really well. Made a lot of impact in a lot of different areas. And but when I was working in healthcare, I started noticing a lot of my peers going down the same path I did. And it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, we can't have this. And this was like 2014, 2015. Burnout, of course, is, a hot button topic now. And one of the things that it dawned on me is like, okay, and I wasn't prepared to share my story at that point, but I'm like, I gotta warn people. Kind of felt like Paul Revere. I'm like, I gotta warn people something's coming up if they don't do something. And I decided, okay, let's let's start doing something. So I started doing some talks at some health conferences and started writing a blog. And then from there, a colleague of mine said, "Hey, maybe you got a consulting business here. Maybe you can help some people." So launched something on the side, started writing a little bit more. Another colleague said, "Do a podcast." I'm like, "I don't want to do a podcast." Well, 8 years later, I'm still doing a podcast. So I don't listen to people until they tell me to do it, and I do it. So, but long story short, that's kind of the origin story of why burnout is this thing for me. I hate seeing what it does to people. I know what it did to me. I don't want anybody to go through that or even a tenth of that because it robs society of great people doing great things. And we need society to do that. We need society to be good, be their best, because then they give their best and then we receive their best and makes our businesses stronger, families stronger, health stronger. It just improves everything. And I consider myself obviously very fortunate to be here, but also equally fortunate that I get to do the work that I do because I feel it's important and somebody's got to do it. And as much as I'd be thrilled if burnout went away, I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Yeah, no, neither do I. I've experienced it myself. Very driven myself at one point in time. We have some overlap, obviously. I was an IT consultant, owned an IT service company and a retail store, and I literally would work days on end without sleep. And people would, you can't do that. Oh, I got to make money. I got to do this. So, and it's that mindset. You're thinking you got to keep up with the Jones and the Smiths, and oh, I got to keep up with my brother-in-laws, or everybody has all these high expectations of me. I went to school and did this. I went into electronics engineering, and instead of doing that for very long, I left and went into IT, and you know what I mean? It's just it got to a point where I was my own worst enemy. So I understand that burnout sort of thing. Thank goodness I didn't have a heart attack, but I used to have panic attacks, extreme anxiety. It was terrible wearing that mask, you know, living a life of going up and down because I'd have good years just like you. And I was in the IT industry back when it crashed in 2000 into 2000, 2 years, 2002 was finally starting to recover somewhat. I went through that too. Struggled to hold on to a home. Went through, back in 2000 and fast forward up to 2000. I shouldn't say 2002. Sorry, listeners. 1992 is when I got into the IT industry after I graduated from electronics engineering. Fast forward to 2002, I had been in my consulting industry, working too many hours, literally not sleeping, burnout. Everything happens for a reason. I ended up
Hmm.
leaving that industry because of my health, got
Hmm.
into finance. And then in 2008, just like you were saying, we had the fall of the markets. And we look at
Hmm.
what happened in my industry. Do you think people were investing or do you think they were taking money out? They were taking out money hand over fist,
Hmm.
right? And I was stressed because I was doing the same. Next thing you know, I'm in, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? So I could have easily had what happened to you happen to me. right? Quiet desperation, going to bed at night. And I write about it in my own book. And just not wanting to get up, and I was a single dad of five kids. In 2008 I got full custody of them, and I would put on a mask, literally a virtual mask, and I'd put it on, and I'd come down smiling, and hey, Dad, we need this or we need that, and I'm thinking, oh. So
Hmm.
I had to start doing what I had been doing for my clients, but being more educational toward my kids, showing them budgets, educating them about needs and wants and all those other things that we don't necessarily get taught. And I know those in the medical industry, I know a lot of doctors. I have clients that are doctors, dentists, the list go on, professionals, accountants, lawyers, and they all, and when I look at it now through your story, and I'm thinking to myself, hmm, who can I reach out to stop this for them? How can I approach them? Wait a minute, I'm not the expert. I'm going to lead them to this podcast and lead them to you. Why would I want to be an expert in a field that I'm not? Even though you took your challenges and experiences and created that into an expertise that now helps others, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. How many people try doing that though? Right? Look for others that can help you, that are
Yeah.
already gone through that journey, right? Those different processes in life where they've experienced it, where they've had a lock on the door, where they've had creditors. I used to do that, brother. I remember back in '08, I paid the one utility company. I'd wait and I would pay those and I'd wait on the other one until they'd send me a disconnection notice, right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden I'd stop paying the other one, catch up on this one just so that I wouldn't have. And I remember coming home one day with my kids. This was probably, I don't know, let's say 2009. And there was a disconnection notice on the door saying they were going to disconnect my water, right? Well, I'm freaking out, trying to figure out how am I gonna, because that was one of the companies I hadn't paid in a couple months,
Mm.
and making all these phone calls, and a person come with these big poles, they're gonna go and shut my water off at the front of the house, right? Because I live in a cul-de-sac, and
Hmm.
telling them, begging them, listen, I'm on the phone, and I was. And they literally gave me, I had till 4:30 that day. It was about 3:15. I had to get to downtown, the city of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where I live, to give them cash, and then they wouldn't disconnect my water. Can you imagine? Four kids, no
Yeah.
water. Like,
Mm.
yes, back in the day they had to pump for water and stuff, but in today's society, we're so used to those needs, right? That's not
Hmm.
really a want, it's a need once you're used to it and grow up with it. So
Hmm.
I can definitely relate to your pain, except for the heart attack. Thank you, God, for not allowing me to have that.
Yeah.
Um, it's we have a lot of commonalities, but do we actually look at other people and other circumstances of what they're going through when we communicate with them? Do you think that that's part of the problem is the lack of communication that causes all that internal strife?
Oh yeah, and it seems just to get worse and worse where, people are so short fused, and I know the last 5 years have been really, really hard for people. From the pandemic to trade wars to elections to, inflation, cost of things. There's no shortage of things to cause issues, and it's just I think a lot of, especially with the pandemic, I think there's a lot of unaddressed trauma from that period of time. It was a traumatic experience for everybody. I mean, for some people more than others, but I think a lot of people really have not addressed that trauma. So it's kind of just lingering there. And our ability to kind of seek to understand what other people are going through. It's not our first line of defense or offense, quite frankly. It's like we don't think, especially if somebody cuts us off in traffic or they say something and you're like, we don't, and it could be a relative or it could be a complete stranger. We don't understand what people are going through unless we know. And I, I default to the base of everyone is going through something that might be really challenging for them. So all I can do is, make sure that I don't make it worse for them. What can I, if I can help them in a way that doesn't take away from me? Because I think what that happens too often, especially for people that are driven and goal oriented and all of that, we often give too much of ourselves and we don't leave anything for us. And then we ask for help and they may or may not be able to help. And all of a sudden you're like, but I helped you. And it's one of those things where it's like if you really take care of yourself and make sure that you're doing really, really well, when you do help people, they're getting an amazing version of you. And I think that's something for people to remember is, take care of yourself. Is it being selfish? Yes, but you want to be the best version of you. And whether that's a friend, a partner, a dad, a mom, coworker, whatever, we in life there's so many things that we can, use as excuses to cause us to behave or react the way that we do. But we can control our attitude, we can control our emotions. And when we get more in tune with how we are and how we exist, the better we'll be. And I find time and time again, and I'm sure you do as well, is so many of us are just completely unaware of who we are because we don't look within because we start looking within and what do? We automatically go to the mistakes or the bad decisions or we don't like the way our nose is or who knows. Be all kinds of different things. And we shouldn't do that. We have to figure out a way how to really love ourselves um, because you're never going to spend any more time with anybody on this planet than yourself. So figure it out. How do I like, you know, spending time with myself? If there's areas that bother me, okay, let's flush those out. Why do they bother me? And again, it could be, as you mentioned, earlier, with, someone that mentioned, going back to when they were 5 years old and, going all the way back. I mean, there's some people that have had some life experiences that go back decades that
Well,
they're
learned
still,
behaviors. Yeah,
yeah,
learn teachings that they don't even
yeah,
realize.
yeah, they carry that with them. And it's
Even
like,
that nose comment you made, that could be because somebody in their family said something about their
mhm,
nose or said something about their own nose. And we're so driven in society today that we deflect and are hard on others because we don't like ourselves and we really don't know ourselves. So we
yeah,
get stuck in poor associations that confirmation bias. We read
mhm,
or we listen to things that are going to make us feel the way we are already feeling because we don't think we're worthy enough, because we don't understand. We get trapped in addictions and on a
mhm,
hamster wheel. It's just,
yeah,
I can really see how burnout happens so often is because we feel trapped,
mhm.
right?
Yep, yeah, we feel trapped, and it's one of those things where, especially for go-giver or go-getters and people that are driven, it can happen innocently because sometimes we overcommit ourselves. Well, sometimes we do it all the time. But what happens is we make decisions and they're good decisions. We're like, yeah, this is a good idea. I should do this. But what happens is we don't have boundaries of how often we say yes to things because what happens is we just start overwhelming ourselves and then we kind of fool ourselves and say, well, you know what, I can get through this. I can get this done. I'll just work a little bit longer on this. We'll get this done, and then it'll be easier. Well, what happens is we just continue to add on, add on, add on. If you work for somebody and you happen to be that all-star employee, a lot of managers, unfortunately, do a great job of over delegating things to their superstars. And again, it makes sense. I have this project that needs to get done. Who can do it? Okay, Dwight can do it. He's awesome at this. He's done this. He's crushed it. So here, Dwight, got this project for you. And forgetting that I gave you a very similar project that's very time consuming, has a short uh, delivery date. I already gave you one last week, and all of a sudden you get dropped on this, and you're like, wait a minute, how am I going to do all this and this? And it's like, okay, I got to remember I have to take my third child to the doctor appointment on this. There's a dentist appointment on Thursday. Soccer practice is Wednesday at 7. Okay, hockey practice is this. Okay, oh, there's a parent teacher conference and this. And all of a sudden your brain's going, how do I put all these puzzle pieces together? Well, in many cases, they don't fit really well together, and you overwhelm yourself, and then you extend yourself, and then you don't sleep. And if you don't sleep, that's a big, big problem. if it starts impacting your sleep, then you're really running a risk of some significant health and mental health issues because if we don't get good sleep, our bodies aren't repairing the damage we do to ourselves on a daily basis. And that was my situation too. My sleep was garbage for a couple of years, and so the body just wasn't able to repair all the damage I was doing to it, and arteries get clogged, and then you get cardiologists that skip bedside manner class making comments about me being dead.
Yeah,
And
that's unbelievable. That's
yeah.
unbelievable. But I've experienced poor bedside manner too. But at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to ourselves because when we give too much, like Michael, when I was, going through all the court stuff, we had to finance collapse of '08. I'm in court fighting to, I had temporary order to have my kids full time, waiting to 3 years of all that, plus all the financial breakdowns. I used to take my kids to their extracurricular, have to cook meals, try to find time to not let my practice fall apart because there wasn't any work, but there was work for money to go out the door.
Mhm.
People suffering, people closing their accounts down, didn't want to lose their houses. Every night around 8, 8:30, I'd finish cleaning up the kitchen. Kids would start homework. I'd say, okay, I'll come down to help you in about 30 minutes. Dad needs to use the washroom. I didn't necessarily need to use the washroom. I went up to my second floor of my house into my bedroom where I had a master bathroom. And sometimes, Michael, I would just sit on the floor and I'd have my head in my hands. And I'd just be like trying to gather my thoughts. Like you said, your brain's just all over the place emotionally and trying to suck it up one more time, right? Live that, put that mask back on, live in quiet desperation inside, hold it in, not like what I seen, not sleeping properly. And I was sick all the time. When I think back of that, I had colds all the time and I was run down and I'd have to use more energy than normal to not snap at people or
Mhm.
circumstances, right? So burnout is like a real thing. I was looking it up just for the heck of it to see what the World Health Organization, so those listening or watching, they recognize burnout as an occupational phenomenon resulting from chronic workplace stress that has been not successfully managed. Well, I also look at this situation too, that occupational burnout that's happening at your job, and you did touch on that. It comes into our home lives, right? It comes into everything that we do, even if we're part of let's say a volunteer organization. We're volunteering our time. Everything is about pleasing everybody else, but pleasing ourselves. So what would you say is something that an individual can know that they're experiencing burnout? What are some of those signs that they should look for, and who should they look to help them through that? Besides somebody like yourself, obviously, but in their local community, is there something they can do right away to avoid that crash that you've experienced and I have as well?
Yeah, it's important. I mentioned the first one is sleep. Focus on getting the best sleep you possibly can. And I remind people, it's like, I ask them, have you ever gone on a vacation and stayed at a really nice resort or a really nice hotel? And I asked them, what was the bed like? What was the pillow like? What was that experience? He said, oh, it was just, heavenly. It was just the bed was so comfortable, sheets were amazing, the pillows, the blankets, everything was just absolutely amazing. I said, "What? Describe your bed at home and your pillows and blankets and things like that. And is it the same? No, no. I just got a regular pillow. I picked up a $2 pillow at Walmart, and it's like okay. So first things first. It's like I know this is hard, but start squirreling away a little bit of money and start investing in better bedding and create that heavenly environment that you experience at the hotel. You can get those mattresses at home too. You don't have to get from the hotel. You can go to a bedding place and find the best comfortable bed because if you think about it, where do you spend the most consecutive hours of your day in one spot? That would be your bed. So it's important for you, excuse me, to be able to, have the best night's sleep. Because again, when you get good sleep, you repair the damage you do yourselves on a daily basis.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, a good night's sleep. I've had two, three different sleep specialists. I actually had, um, I'm trying to think of his name now. I had him on about a year ago. He's a doctor in the US and he actually has sleep clinics and he teaches people about sleep. And every sleep special, I had a sleep specialist on he was from California, and then I had another sleep specialist on prior to him that was from Toronto.
Hmm.
And you learn so much about sleep. It is our number one thing that we require. And a good pillow. Like I love you saying all that stuff. A good pillow is so important. Comfortable, not too hot, not too cold. Like he taught me all these things. And literally after that was probably about a year ago that he was on, he told me to get blackout curtains. And I says,
Hmm.
why? I says, I like when the sun comes up. But he says it's never consistent. So your body gets thrown out of its circadian rhythm, I think he called it. He
Hmm.
says, uh, he says, get blackout curtains. He says your body won't care if the room's dark and you're getting proper sleep and you've set an alarm. Are you a person that normally wakes up before your alarm? I said, yeah, I do. He says, it's not going to change. He says, your body, you're going to bed, it's 10:30 or whatever time it is, and you're going to get up at 7. Your body's going to wake you up still. But that dark room is going to give you a more comfortable, relaxed sleep, right? And man, has that ever made a difference in my life? Just putting blackout curtains in my bedroom, where for all my life, I didn't have that.
Yeah,
Just little things like that. A good pillow, good mattress, like you're saying. Spend the money.
yeah,
Blackout curtains. It made a huge difference in my life. And my Apple Watch records all my sleep. And I started watching and looking back at how my sleep got better. I was having deeper core sleep, deeper REM sleep. It was just amazing the changes, just little changes that he mentioned I should do.
yeah. I use a sleep mask and it blocks out everything. It's like it's jet black. It's like and it's absolutely amazing. And yeah, you're right. My body wakes up. I have an alarm? Yeah, but I usually am shutting the alarm off after I've already been up and doing something. So sleep's the one thing. The second one, uh, yeah, this is really important too. When people are burned out, they start cutting out the fun stuff in life. They stop going to the games. Let's say you're a mini season ticket holder to the Oilers, or if you're in Calgary, that team. Um, you know, and by the way, I'm not a Leafs fan, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm originally from Detroit. It's legally impossible for me to be a Leafs fan, apparently. So, but. Yeah, but yeah,
Oh,
I'm not a Leafs fan. And I always joke, it's like, the original six NHL cities, which I've lived or worked in five of them, ironically. Um,
wow.
Montreal's the last one, and Montreal's a tough nut to crack because not easy to work in Montreal, for a variety of reasons. But long story short, the Maple Leafs is their last cup was in 1967. So, whenever you look at the photos of the original six in their last Stanley Cup victory, it's the only photo that's in black and white. So just saying, it's been a bit, but maybe one day. I don't expect to see it in my lifetime, but maybe one day. But what happens is when you're burned out, you quit going to those games. You quit doing things. When I was burned out, I was, like I said, in the Detroit area, and I was a season ticket holder for the Detroit Tigers. And this is back in 2006, 2007, 8, 9. They were really good. They were going to the playoffs every year. They went to the World Series in '06 and in 2012. So they were a really good team. And I had season tickets. And when you buy a season ticket package, you have the tickets, food voucher, beer voucher, parking. You just got to show up. You don't have to bring your wallet. I mean, bring your driver's license, but you don't have to bring anything. You just show up. And I quit going, because I was burned out. I'm too tired. And I love baseball. It was my first love. The reason why I went into accounting as a kid or as an adult in my career was because the back of baseball cards, calculating the stats and all that stuff. I was really enthralled with that. So that was my first career because of baseball cards. So I love that sport. And I quit going. And that should have been the biggest red flag, neon arrows pointing, hey, hey, wake up, wake up. I didn't. I was completely oblivious to it. So if you start cutting out things in life you like doing, even if you're working a lot of hours, if you start cutting those things out, that is a big warning sign. So you gotta check that. Also, check your eating habits. Have they changed? Because if you're working so many hours, you're not giving yourself enough time to actually sit down and eat a meal. So you're basically, consuming fast food or, quick prep meals or things like that. And that, of course, will take a toll on yourself as well because you're not eating and getting all the nutrients that your body needs. So your body will say, "Hey, let's clog up those arteries." So you got to watch out for that. And another thing that it jumps out too is what happens, and you mentioned this earlier too, when you're burned out or you're overly stressed, your fuse shortens up quite a bit. So you start getting angry and set off by things that should not set you off, but they do. And it's because your body's so just wound up and frustrated that any little thing can throw you off. And as a parent, your kid, they're not doing anything wrong at all, but they say, "Dad, we need more cheese or we need more this." And you mentioned the financial struggles, which I'm fully aware of that. And you know, an American stat, and I know it's not much different in Canada. 7 out of 10 Americans are really underwater in debt right now. It's bad, and it's like, okay, and the cost of living is this, salary increases this. It's getting worse and worse, and it's of all the stressors, my personal opinion, I think financial stress is probably one of the worst because I don't think any of us really love paying bills, but I know we do enjoy the ability to be able to pay a bill. And when we don't have that ability, and you shared, your story on what that was like, and I've been there too. The shell game of trying to figure out you pay them, but this, do this, not fun. You get creative, but it's not fun. You'd rather not. You'd rather just say, all right, you know what, that bill's coming up. I'm gonna go ahead and pay it now so I don't forget it. We'd rather do that than go, oh crap, where am I going to come up with this? And you're negotiating with the people that are out front, getting ready to shut off the water. Um, Been there, done that, and it's not a fun experience. And so these things all take a toll, and they happen over sequence over a period of time. It's like decisions that you make end up creating the scenarios that end up putting in the situation. Yes, there might be external things. You get laid off, the economy goes down. It's for some reason they can't find any oil in Alberta anymore. That's going to be a problem. I'm not going to would that never happens, but it's there's always little things that can change that are outside of your control. So what's important is control the things that you can control, be prepared for things as best you can. Make sure you do things in life that you enjoy doing, even when things are tough and you're busy.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness. Even going to the local park with your
Yeah,
kids or
go
just
to the
go for a walk or
go to the
purpose,
library.
purposeful living is which is what my book is about, right?
Hmm.
How to live life on purpose and not by accident. It takes work. It takes coaching. It takes
Hmm.
empathy towards yourself and from
Yeah.
others to give it to you to say, you know what? That is the Michael, I hear who you are today, but we're going to help you take baby steps so that you're going to evolve and continue to climb in life so that you realize that money is not the root of all evil. Money's got no personality. Money is a tool that we need to utilize that we've never been taught to utilize properly.
Mm. Right.
And I'm going to help you. Plus, I'm going to help you with your 6 inches between your ears. Why are you going to do all that, Dwight? You're a finance guy. Why do you care about lifestyle coaching? Why do you care about that? Because they said nobody cared about it for me.
Hmm.
And I lived in so many years of quiet desperation, and it's not a fun place to be. And I think everybody deserves to live a life, whatever level that is. I don't need to be the local pillar of the community, as you mentioned earlier, that the leader that everybody looks at to. I just want to be somebody that my family looks up to. And most importantly, I want to be somebody that I look at in the mirror on more than one day of the 7 days of the week where I'm proud of who I have become. I acknowledge who I was, and I know that I never want to get back there again. But I know if I slide backwards, because I've had those up and downs, valley of despair, I've had it happen more than once in my life. But I have the tools and continually work on the tools and the associations and the network of people that I know that will listen when they need to listen. They'll give advice when they need to give advice. They'll kick me in the butt when I need to get kicked in the butt. But
Hmm.
it's all based on the fact that they're trying to help me. They're not trying to make their hide from their own existence by making my existence worse, if that makes sense. Right? We have
Oh,
those associations that are terrible, that their lives suck, so they want to make our lives and all the drama worse so they can avoid their own drama.
yeah. A lot of people unfortunately project, and when they see somebody that's doing well, they want to bring them down, not to attack them per se, but it's just like they it's just a reflection of themselves and how they feel, and they feel like I'm being robbed of this, and I'm a big proponent of there's more than enough for everybody. Yes, it takes work. You got to figure out who you are, figure out what's important to you, and that changes over time. The version of me, even from 2010, when I was healing and getting better, is completely different than who I am today, and I'm thankful for that. And 10 years from
Gratefulness.
now, yeah, 10 years from now, I'm guessing I'll probably be even different than I am now. I know I'll be older. That one's a sure. But other stuff is like, things that are important to me may be different. There may be new interests or new hobbies or new things to do. I don't know what that'll be, but I can kind of set the tone of what that would look like, and by doing that, is just being my best version of myself day after day. Set
Yeah.
myself up for success.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Of course.
Awesome. But yeah, to add on to what you were saying, at the end of the day, you had a heart attack. And even if you had been a multi-millionaire and had passed away and missed all the memories, the creation of memories because of burnout, because of working too many hours, because you're a people pleaser and trying to take on more than you possibly should, at the end of the day, people, life is in session. Yesterday's the past, tomorrow's the future, today's the present. Just stop and breathe.
Hmm.
Even if you do something, as if you have a smartwatch, like an Apple Watch, set it up where it reminds you throughout the day to do breathing exercises, or it
Hmm.
reminds you, mine reminds me to stand up as well, just
Hmm.
to get up out of the chair, right? You have to be and move around and open the window out and look outside or just do anything. Like I realized here about it because I was had a bad chest cold. I'm just finally at the end of it for over just about 2 weeks. And my son come in to the house and he says, "Dad, it's beautiful outside today," because one of my adult kids lives at home.
Hmm.
And he says, "It's gorgeous outside. You need to step outside." Yeah, why? It's just because, Dad, do it. And I did. I stepped outside, had my 25-year-old son, give me a little bit of a mental slap saying, it's whatever, just stand outside for a few minutes. And I
Hmm.
did. And I was
Yeah.
just like, I'm looking around, I'm hearing the birds chirp, and I look over and along my ones because I have a big backyard. I have this squirrel running along the fence, and I'm loving it. But
Hmm.
we forget about that. We forget about the
Yeah.
simple things, the walks, spending time
Yeah.
with family. All that money doesn't mean nothing to you. Even if you weren't in a circumstance with your house and that, you still had at that moment in time, you had your family to hang on to.
Hmm.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So many people, like I know you said you mentioned, that was their first relationship, I believe, right?
Yeah.
First marriage.
Yep.
Things happen,
Hmm.
right? It happens. But at the end of the day, if we love ourselves, we can love others more. So work on yourself, people. Like honestly, take that baby step.
Hmm.
Just stop and realize that you should stop and smell the roses. I guess that phrase is a little overused, but it's true, right? We need to
Oh yeah.
appreciate what we have every day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's intent with the pause, and it's just and just kind of take pause for a minute and kind of look around and see what's around you, and you'll see things and hear things, and you're like, how long has that been there? Well, that's been there since we've lived here. And you're like, oh, okay. That's an indication of like, yeah, you're in your head too much instead of in the world, and sometimes you just have to step outside of it and just take in what you see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I tell people, look on your, are you a person that likes taking pictures? Yeah. Look on your phone look in your Photos app, and whether I don't care what kind of phone it is, and tell me where's their pictures. I don't care what age you are. Maybe it's pictures with your adult kids, your own young kids. Maybe it's your adult kids with grandkids, or maybe you don't have kids and it's just hanging out with friends, right? Maybe it's you fishing. What are the dates? How long has it been since you've had a memory creation? And it makes people stop and think because a lot of times, if they're too driven and they're in that burnout phase or approaching it, maybe they're not there yet or they're a candidate for it, they don't have any memories. They can't tell me
Mhm.
stories about stuff. They'll tell me about accomplishments, but the journey up to that accomplishment, they can't tell me anything about it except that they work, 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 work.
Yeah,
And that's the society that we have today. It's just sad.
it reminds me of an exercise I do when I, do workshops or, keynote events and I have time. It's one of those things where it's important for you to schedule things in life that you enjoy doing. And what I'll do is this exercise, I have people take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle of it. And on the left side, write down all the things in life they enjoy doing. And it can be big, like going on trips or golfing or fishing or going to the hockey game or, you know, doing whatever, whatever they enjoy doing. You know, be as complete as they can. They can always add to this list later, but list all those things out that they enjoy doing. And then after, I give them a few minutes, it's like, okay, everybody pretty much got a list together. Good. Okay. Okay. Now to the right of every one of those items, write down the last time you did them. And I usually hear moans and groans and nervous
Wow.
laughter because all of a sudden they feel really convicted at that point. And they went, oh my. And like, yeah, why? And I ask them, okay, why aren't you doing these things? These are things you love to do. Why aren't you doing them? And I wait for somebody to say, well, I just don't have time. And if they have an iPhone, that's when I go, all right, let me look at your iBinky. That's my brother's nickname for my iPhone is iBinky because I'm always on the thing like a pacifier. Um, so I say, okay, let's open up screen time. Let's see how many hours a day you are playing on your phone. And it's usually north of 6 hours for most people. Like, okay, any of these things on the list over here, could you do in less than 6 hours? And usually a lot of them are yes. I said, okay, do me a favor. Pick a couple of those things on the list. Let's go out in your calendar. Let's go out 10 or 21 days. Just, go out and let's schedule one of those things. Put it in your day. If you have to take a day off work, a half day off work, do it. I don't care. It's just money. Do it and go do that. Don't change that appointment. That's a very important. It's imagine that's the biggest appointment you've ever had up to this point in your life because it's you taking care of you. Do that and get in the habit of starting to schedule things in life you enjoy doing. Even if you're working an ungodly amount of hours, you can still do something. Even if it's like if you love sitting in a coffee shop, you like going to Second Cup and you like sitting because they've got a
Yeah.
sweet balcony and you like sitting there. It's like, well, I've been working so much, can't do that. Could you go and sit there for 10 minutes? Now the weather's starting to improve a little bit. Can you do that? Yeah. Even if instead of the half hour, do 10 minutes. Just sit there.
Baby steps. Yeah, baby
Yeah,
steps.
and all of a sudden that 10 minute they feel good, and then they go, you know what? I've moved some things around. I can actually stay for half an hour today. Awesome. And it's just getting in the habit of taking care of yourself, and that's what
Yeah.
taking care of yourself is. Just
And you
doing
can
things
do
in
it
life.
you can do it relatively cheap too.
Oh
I've
yeah, I mean,
taught many clients that, well, we're underwater financially. Well, you still have to have a date night with your spouse. You
yep.
need to stay connected. You need to go to that hockey game. You need to do things. You have to, there's needs and wants because I do a lot of extensive budgeting with people. You can look at stuff and say to yourself, well, once a month, our entertainment budget is a want. It's not a need, Dwight. No, it's a need.
Hmm.
When's the last time you and your spouse did anything? When's the last time you took your kids to even the park and just made a picnic? It doesn't have to be very expensive. When's the last time, like you said, you went to a Second Cup or Tim Hortons or Starbucks and just sat and were just in your own thoughts? People watch. That can be fun too,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? It can be fun to watch people. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Is there a certain type of individual that experiences burnout more than others?
Having worked in this space for as long as I have, I do see some trends that, in many cases, the type A driven personalities, the successful people that want to accomplish great things for this world can definitely be prone to it because they give so much of themselves. If they're a people pleaser, that's and I identify as a reformed people pleaser. It's definitely a trait that is deep in my DNA, understanding, what my ancestors did in their lives. It's like, okay, this is not just something I picked up because it seemed like the right thing to do. This is deep within. But I think, those type A personalities driven that are like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do this, and they keep go, 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 but they don't stop to kind of, check the tank and see how they're doing. They're just like, no, let's just do it. And again, a lot of the choices they make and the decisions they make and the things that they take on are good things. It's not like they're taking on stupid things. They're taking on really important things that would actually make a huge difference for their company or their business or whatever. But unfortunately, is they start taking shortcuts in other areas of life, and that catches up, and then you're not your best self. Your cognitive abilities start to decline, so you're not being as productive as you could be because you don't feel well. You're not feeling well mentally or physically, and it takes a big toll. So I tend to see a lot of times it's those driven people, but it's not exclusive to them. But time and time again, at least with the people that I've worked with, it seems to be those really successful, driven people that kind of go too far down the road and they need to kind of go in reverse a little bit and like, let's try this a different way. You're still going to be able to accomplish a lot, but not to your own detriment.
Is it at all gender driven? Is one gender more susceptible to burnout than the other?
Everything that I've seen, my unofficial studies and then the actual official studies, it tends to be about a 50-50 split. It
Wow.
depends. Yeah, it's surprising. Now, I honestly thought that it would be a little bit more on the female side, and I've seen it kind of leans that way a little bit, especially if it's a situation where they're, a higher level leadership type of role, and, so is their spouse, and there's children involved, and, navigating all of those things and all of that can do that. But as we see, it's harmonizing. And I think, with, half the population, being divorced, you throw in that aspect of it too. And it was one of those things where we saw parents were of both genders were definitely having a rough go of it during the early days of the pandemic because they were all working from home. They normally worked a 9 to 5 type of role, and then they realized really quick, hey, wait a minute, I'm homeschooling now, and my kids are in school when I was at work. How am I going to do this? And they realized that they couldn't real easily. So that's when you start seeing people getting up earlier to do work and then helping their kids with the school during the day and then waiting for the kids to go to bed and then they're doing some work at night. So those were some long days for people. And that was one of the reasons why we saw such a huge spike in burnout during the pandemic, which was the opposite of what I was hoping to find and see, but that was just kind of the nature of the beast of what happened, unfortunately, especially in those early days of the pandemic.
Yeah, the divorce circumstance and situation is a pandemic on its own, which I don't
Yeah.
think is ever going to end. Um,
Yeah.
and it has to do with the way we're raised. It has to do with learned behavior, societal
Hmm.
pressures of what our expectations are, and all of a sudden people get divorced and they still want to get still live at the same level when all of a sudden now they just have one income
Hmm.
each, and maybe they have joint custody like initially I did. And it was a struggle, right? It
Yeah.
was tough. We weren't taught that. Oh,
No.
what we were taught is for better or for worse and richer or for poorer. We weren't taught, oh, it might not work out. Now, here's the tools you might need for this. Or, oh, if things don't work out, come to here. We're going to be a good government organization. We're going to have things that you can plug into that are going to teach you how to live frugal or live apart or live, you're going to
Yeah.
have to live differently now. And instead, what do? When we don't, I know myself, when I didn't have my kids, I worked more hours so
Yeah.
that when I did have my kids, I knew I couldn't work as much. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it was a roller coaster for the month. One week, up, down, up, down, up,
Hmm.
down. And how many families out there are doing that right now, Michael?
Yeah.
And just
Way
crushed.
too many. Yeah, way too many. And no one wins in this situation. It's not a yeah, and there's always dynamics and reasons and all of that, but no one wins in it because it's not a financial gain for anybody. Everybody loses in it, and it's sad to see. I've been through it. You've been through it. It's not something that I would wish upon anyone, but um, I say this tongue in cheek, and some people may laugh at this. Some people may not like this, but a joke that I heard years ago was, why are divorces so expensive? Because they're worth it. But that could be taken a lot of different ways, and for me, it made a lot of sense to have it done. But do I wish it happened? Absolutely not. I
Oh
wish
no.
I wouldn't wish that upon anybody because it's a devastating thing and it can cause stress and burnout as well. And
And you
it
still
could
got to go to work, even though you're dealing with the
yeah.
soon-to-be
Oh
ex,
yeah.
and you're dealing with
Yeah.
lawyers
Oh
that
yeah.
that have the empathy switch turned off. Their bedside manner isn't always the best. I'm not saying all lawyers. I know some good
Mhm.
ones, but majority of them
Yeah.
have dealt
Yeah.
with thousands of similar cases as yours, have heard it all, and they have no
Hmm.
choice but to shut it off, or they're going to take it home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just it's a hamster wheel of life. One of the things I want to talk, the last question that I want to ask you in regards to your life would be you've written a few books. Your latest, as we mentioned earlier, Burnout Proof: How to Establish Boundaries to Avoid the Negativity of Stress. I know
Hmm.
myself writing my own book, I found it very cathartic. I learned things that I had compartmentalized and put aside, or things that I realized, but I didn't really give myself credit for. How
Hmm.
was writing your last book or any of the books, how did it affect you? Did you find it to be a healing situation or an awareness situation?
Oh, it was definitely a healing situation because I would write. I'd say, okay, and how I wrote was, okay, I'm going to do this chapter by chapter, especially, when I went through my 369 days of worst case scenarios and, mapping what happened with the heart attack, the job loss, car loss, home foreclosure. And, I wrote all of those, separately as they happened. And after I'd write it, I wouldn't go back to read it yet. I would sit with it and go, okay, I'm going to come back to this tomorrow and see if there's anything that I missed, but also, is there any lessons that, because I released, that first book about, what had happened to me in 2017. So it had been, 7 years since what everything went down. And for me, it was very therapeutic and helpful for me to go back to it because I wanted to. It wasn't like I want to suppress this. I'm like, suppressed is not going to help me heal by any stretch. And I thought that I had healed with a lot, but I discovered in writing that there was things that I had not healed from. And I'm like, I worked through them. I'm like, okay, let's flush this out. What am I seeing? What am I looking at? What do I need to do to kind of move forward from this? Not move on, but move forward. 'Cause some people say move on. It's like, yeah, how can you move on? It's like there's certain things you just don't move on from, but you can move forward because it's different. But it was very, very helpful and therapeutic, and it was a way to say when I wrote it, I'm like, okay, is this coming off when, and I try to put myself in the reader's seat and like, I don't want this to be a victim type of situation. I want people to at least understand what had happened. I'm sharing it as kind of a connecting point, going, okay, I have something that happened similar, not to compare, because I don't want to compare anything. Oh, my loss was bigger than your. No, I don't want to do that. That doesn't serve anybody. I said, my hope is that if you see somebody else has gone through some challenging times, that it can give you hope, especially when you are going through things and you're trying to rebuild or get better at something. It's like, okay, people have gone through this. We all have, and we will continue to go through things. So life's about. It's to go through things. It refines us. Every day we get refined. For me, it was very helpful. And I'm like, okay, but the premise of it was I want this book to be give hope, give a warning, and maybe tip somebody off going, okay, if you're going down that path to burnout, you don't have to continue going. You can turn around, and I highly suggest you do. And here's some things you can do to kind of make it a little bit easier. Get to the point where you go from being almost burned out or overly stressed to a more normal-ish state. And then from there, the deeper work for people, especially if they have burned out, is to figure out, okay, why did you burn out in the first place? What
Uh,
happened? What were your decisions? What were your choices? What were your behaviors? What were your beliefs? What was the language you were telling yourself? That's a deeper dive, and a lot of people don't want to go down that road, and I understand because they look at that and it's like, ooh, that's kind of scary. I'm like, it can be, but how I did it, and I'm thankful this worked for me, is when I was going through the recovery, I basically, when I was asking myself why was this important, why did I do the things I did, I approached it as if I was a 5-year-old version of me. I was curious, why was that important to me? What does this do? And not judgmental, not beat myself up because, well, I'd already been beaten up. I don't need to do any more to myself. Just, okay, why was that important? Okay, if I had an opportunity to do this again, what would I do differently that would help prevent going through what I just did? And just like, okay, and it's like experimenting if you cook in the kitchen, playing around with different spices. You try some things and you go, okay, this is all good, that's all right, and and thankfully in these modern times, if you screwed up really bad, Uber Eats or DoorDash is just a phone call away, and you can get something delivered if you screw up your dinner. But life is meant to be toyed with and explored and played with, and the more we do that, I think the more fun we have, and the less likelihood we're going to burn out.
yeah, a linear living isn't what any of us want.
Right.
Just to be coasting and camped in life. And yeah, I love that. That's so true. I know with my book too, it's the same thing. Started out with my origin. I didn't want it to be a pity party, but I wanted people to understand what I had realized, I guess, like you had said, as a 5-year-old, and I had to sit in that stuff. And sometimes I'd be looking at the chapter and I'd be reviewing it after I come back from the editor, and I'd start and I'd cry. It was just like,
Yeah.
what, you know, and I never ever released that in the past.
Hmm.
And I had to start really looking at stuff and going, why was this so impactful in my life?
Hmm.
Why did I not realize that? Oh, there was other things going on in your life with your family, or your dad was my dad was a successful business owner. He was always on the go, 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 go. And just putting all these puzzle pieces together and having those aha moments was just
Hmm.
amazing, right? And you probably had a lot of those yourself.
Oh, definitely.
Right? I'd recommend anybody that wants to even if they don't write a book,
Hmm.
journal your life,
Yep. Yeah,
right?
I
Look
do.
back.
Yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of journaling, and I look back to when I launched my business in 2015 and 2016. I still have the journals from back then. Occasionally, I look at them, and I look and I go, I am shocked how naive I was on some things, and there are
Oh
other
my
things.
goodness.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
other things I'm like, oh, I didn't do that. I'm like, do I want to do that now? No. All right. I'm not losing any sleep over it, which is such a difference than what my old version would be of me, where I'd be like, that's unfinished. I got to go back and fix that. No, good enough.
Yeah.
As it's not an issue now. It was then. It's different now. You don't need to do it, but maybe you will down the road. I don't know. But yeah, I still have a ton of journals. Actually, they're on the bookshelf back there. No, I moved them. Okay. But yeah, I occasionally I'll grab one. It's like let's review this, and it's a lot of times, I do a year end kind of review of things and okay, what do I want to do in the next year? What are some things that I want to celebrate? What did I learn this year? What do I know about myself that's different? How, where am I at in my overall goals? And just, take some time to do that. And it's a year-end celebration kind of thing. And but I'll look back at, journals and read a favorite book or a variety of different things just to kind of put a nice bow at the end of the year and make sure that when I enter in a new year, I'm refreshed. But you don't have to wait till the end of the year to do that. You can do that at any time, and I actually highly recommend that you do it
I do a
periodically.
day, I do reflection on my day every day.
Yep.
Every day now I had to get to it,
Yep.
but it's a habit that I
Yeah.
created.
Of course.
And I do it in bed, right?
Mhm.
And I get up in the morning and I reflect on what's going to happen in the day, right? When I go to bed at night, oh, for me, I'm a praying person. I'm a Christian, and I'll literally say, have gratefulness. Say, God, thank you for this amazing interview I had today with Michael.
Mhm.
Wow, did it ever open my eyes? Thank you for blessing me and bringing him into my life, right? Just simple things and reflect, oh, I had a person act like this today when we had a conversation. Did I have any part of that? Oh,
Yeah.
I think I did. Well, what am I going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'm going to reach out to that person and find out because I want to have a compassionate heart and I want to make sure I'm eliciting um, happiness and picking people up, not pushing them down and owning my own crap, owning that
Mhm.
maybe I said something wrong. And maybe they say to me, "Oh, no, you didn't do anything wrong, Dwight. You know, you just said something that triggered something in me, and those emotions come up. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Mhm.
Maybe if I would have been more cognizant of your body language, and then I become a better student of human nature. And I'm just always trying to grow. And those people watching or listening, I'm not perfect. I have those character building moments throughout my day where I'm not at my best. I time myself out, come back. It's about all I
Yep.
can do,
Yeah.
right? Beating ourselves up gets us nowhere, right, Michael?
Exactly. No. Yeah. It's life does a good enough job of that. We don't need to do it to ourselves.
So, last thing, Michael, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Just really establish boundaries on how you live your life. Figure out what your ideal life looks like from, your ideal day, your ideal week, your ideal month, your ideal year, from where you live. You know, I'm not a big, material guy kind of thing, but if that's your thing, I'm not telling you not to, but just set up your life to be your dream life. What would it look like if you lived your dream life? And what does that look like? What does that taste like? What does that feel like? And then, where are you right now? Okay, and let's connect the dots and just take steps, and each day do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, you'll get there. And because everybody wants this quick fix, but yeah, much like anything, like, quick weight loss kind of thing. Oh, it's like, oh, I dropped 10 pounds. Well, guess what? This is all water. Guess what? In a couple of days, it's all coming back. But if you change how you do things, you get a little bit more active, you change your food intake a little bit, over time, you'll lose that 10 pounds. And guess what? It's sustained. That's what you want. You want something sustainable in your life. You want your ideal life. Well, design it and then do it. And is it hard to do? Yeah. And it's also easy not to do. And you just have to determine, what do you want in your life? Do you want your life to be a life of struggle, or do you want your life to be a life of what it was designed to be, the best you could absolutely be? Because you're here for a reason. Everyone is here for a reason. We need you to be the best version of you because there's things you do that's going to make things better for all of us. So that's my hope and prayer for everybody is to be the best version of you because when you do that, the ripple effect of that is beyond comprehension. So just be the best version of you. The impact you'll have on this world will be astronomical. So just be the best version of you.
Awesome. That's a fantastic closing message. Thanks for that. So, our time is up. I want to respect our listeners in your time. What's the best way that people can reach out to you, Michael?
Yeah, just go to breakfastleadership.com. There's links on the site, whether it's to the podcast. I write a ton of blog articles. I'm on most of the social media channels. You can find me. Usually, if you look up beat the letter B and then fast leadership, do not put that on a license plate, people. That'll get you in trouble, and you'll get to meet the police services all the time if you have some plate like that. But just breakfastleadership.com and reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you about anything and everything.
Right on. And for those new to the Give a Heck podcast, go to giveaheck.com. At the top, you'll see podcast. Click on it. You'll see a picture of Michael. You'll see the show notes. I'll ensure all his social media links are in there, as well as his website link. And there'll be chapter summaries of this episode, as well as a full unedited transcript if you're a person that wants to go and read, as opposed to, listening to the podcast again. Maybe there's a specific section you're looking for, and the chapter summaries will help you as well. So just again, go to giveaheck.com and to the podcast section. Any last final comments before I wrap up the show?
Well, I really appreciate your time today, Dwight, and I really appreciate the listeners for giving us your time. Time is that one commodity that we spend it and it's gone. We never get it back. So I really appreciate you, and I want the best for all of us because the world deserves it and we deserve it. So go out there and crush it. So thanks again for this opportunity to be on the show.
Yes, and thank you for investing your time with me. I appreciate it. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Michael. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.